Hello. This should be day 2 for your reading today. And you should have already read the story 2 times, and this will be your third time through. And I'm going to read it, and I'm going to pause and ask questions. So when I pause, or when I pause my reading and ask the questions, I want you to pause the video, and I want you to answer them out loud. Okay, that will really help you if you can pause the video and answer my questions out loud, okay? So we are going to start with the story background, so part B for lesson 61, okay? So I want you to two-finger track as I am reading, and when I pause and ask questions, you need to pause the video to answer them, okay? So the first part today is some story background. We're going to read about the facts about baseball. So two-finger tracking, and you are going to follow along as I read. The picture on the opposite page shows a game between two baseball teams, the Reds and the Blues. There are 9 players on each team. All 9 Blues are on the field. One player from the Reds is standing at home plate. That player is called the batter. The other Reds players are in the dugout waiting for their turn at bats. The pitcher on the blue team throws the ball toward the catcher, who plays behind home plate. There are players at first base, second base, and third base. Between second and third base is another player called the shortstop. In the outfield, there are 3 more players: the left fielder, the center fielder, and the right fielder. When the pitcher throws the ball, the batter tries to hit the ball to a spot where nobody on the blue team can catch it. Then the batter runs as far as possible around the bases, starting with first base. If the batter can run all the way around the bases and come back to home plate, the batter scores a run. The picture also shows an umpire right behind the catcher. The umpire calls out strike for good pitches and ball for bad pitches. All right, I want you to listen to my question and then pause the video and answer it. How many players from one baseball team are in the field? Good. The answer is 9. Which player plays right behind the batter? You should have answered the catcher. How far must a batter go around the bases before a run scores? Good, they have to run all the way around the bases. Name the bases that a batter goes around, starting with first base. Good, you should have answered first base, second base, third base, and home plate. Okay? All right, let's continue reading. In this lesson, you will begin reading a biography of a famous baseball player, Jackie Robinson. Jackie's story is told by a fictional person. The narrator is fictional, but he tells facts about Jackie Robinson. So here's a question I want you to answer. What is a biography? And what do we call the person who will tell the story? That's a vocab word. What do we call the person who will tell the story? Okay. All right, let's go on to our story about Jackie Robinson. All right, Jackie Robinson by Dwayne Jefferson, Chapter 1. The year 1947 was a long time ago, but I can remember some things that year as if they had happened yesterday. At that time, I worked in a meat packing plant. The work was hard, and I didn't like it very much. But I had one great interest that made the days more exciting. I was a sports fan. Okay, finger freeze. Who is the biography about? What is the narrator's name? Where did the narrator work? What made his days more interesting? How could being a sports fan make your days more interesting? And what year is the narrator remembering? All right, let's continue. I didn't just enjoy watching good athletes compete in sporting events. I loved it. Every chance I had, I'd go to a football game, or a basketball game, or a boxing match. But my favorite team played right here in Brooklyn, New York. They played baseball. That team is no longer in Brooklyn. They moved to Los Angeles in 1958, and now they're called the Los Angeles Dodgers. But back in 1947, they were the Brooklyn Dodgers. People used to call the Dodgers the Bums, but they sure weren't bums. They were rough and they were good. Okay, finger freeze. What was the narrator's favorite team? What sport did that team play? And what is the team called today? All right, let's continue reading. I never missed a game on the weekends. The Dodgers used to play in Ebbets Field, and when the Dodgers played on Saturday or Sunday, I'd be up there in the stands. I'd be yelling at the umpire. I'd be booing the players from the other teams. And I'd be cheering like mad for the Dodgers. For me, the games wouldn't end when they were over on the field. At work the next Monday, we'd talk about the weekend games, and we'd go over every play. I couldn't even begin to count the hours we spent talking about the Dodgers. We'd argue about who was the best hitter, who was the best first baseman, or who was the best pitcher. But we'd always agree on one thing: the Dodgers were the greatest. Even if they didn't win, they were the best team to watch. They were bold and daring. They were tough. And when they played baseball, they played the real thing. Okay, finger freeze. The narrator said the games wouldn't end when they were over on the field. What does that mean? That is a comprehension question, so make sure you can answer that. What was the favorite team of the people the narrator talked to? Where did the narrator's discussions about baseball games take place? All right, let's finish the story and then I'll end it with some more questions. The other day, I went to the place where Ebbets Field used to stand. It's not there anymore. There's nothing but city there now. But when I stood on the corner where the entrance used to be, I had a strange feeling. It was almost as if the clock had turned back to 1947. I could almost see Ebbets Field with a line of fans waiting to get in. I could almost hear the great roar that came from the stands when a Dodger hit a home run. I must have stood on that corner for 10 minutes, thinking back to 1947. A lot of games went through my mind, and I remembered a lot of great players. But as I stood there, the one player that my mind kept going back to was Jackie Robinson. It's amazing, but I can remember a game when the man sitting next to me said, "Why is that player wearing a Dodger uniform?" I remember I turned to him and said, "Don't you read the papers? That's Jackie Robinson." I'd read about Jackie Robinson. He was the first African American to play Major League Baseball, and the very first one. And that day in April 1947 was the first time anybody ever saw an African American playing in a Major League game. If I'd known then what I know now, I would have stood up and yelled, "Yeah, for Jackie!" I would have said, "He's the greatest!" We should be shouting for joy that he's in a Dodger uniform. But many fans were not cheering. They were asking each other why a black man was dressed in a Brooklyn Dodgers uniform. Robinson was in a tight spot. He knew how some of the white fans and players felt about him. He knew they were looking for the slightest excuse to throw him out of the major leagues. When he walked out there on the first day at Ebbets Field, he looked like the loneliest person in the world. He was the only black man on the team, the only black man in the major leagues. Some of the other players on the Dodgers wouldn't even talk to Robinson. They wouldn't joke with him or help him out or stick up for him. Can you imagine what that's like when the men on your team aren't with you and the team's fans don't cheer for you? Can you imagine how lonely Robinson must have felt each time he walked up to the plate with his bat? Sometimes when I think about that day and realize what a fine, gentle person Robinson was, I get kind of choked up. But as I said, I didn't know much about Jackie Robinson back then. All right, a few more questions. When the narrator stood in front of the place where Ebbets Field had been, he remembered one particular year. What year did he remember? Which player did he remember best? Okay. Jackie Robinson was an African American. An old-fashioned word for African American is Negro. An African American can be a black man or a black woman. Jackie Robinson was the first black man to do something. What was that? How did some of the white fans respond to Robinson the first time he played? How did some of the Dodgers respond to Robinson, his teammates? How did they respond? How do you think Robinson felt during that first game? And what would you do if you felt that lonely? All right, so that's the end of lesson 61 story. Okay, you will not work on your work today. You will instead wait until tomorrow to work on your work. Okay? All right, I had fun reading with you today, and I will see you soon. Bye.